what you know about purification to save the heart of a nation. Light burn a darkened world, bringing light to a darkened world. Natural law, just wisdom and love, vision truth below as above. Light burn a darkened world, light burn a darkened world.
Welcome to the Affirm Life Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Mitchell. As always, you can visit affirmlifedaily.com for more information, resources to view previous podcasts, and all that good stuff. But I have a very special guest that I don't want to wait to introduce. His name is Chris Jansen of the End Evil podcast. Chris is a carpenter, philosopher, podcaster, and copywriter. He works tirelessly educating others about natural law. He takes the initiative to promote positive solutions to the current world problems while acutely focusing on highlighting the difference between right and wrong. He teaches objective morality as a replacement for moral relativism. Chris is also a group facilitator, inspirational speaker, and motivational coach. You can learn more about Chris from his website, chrisjansen.com or endevil.life. Welcome, Chris. Oh, I'm so glad to have you on.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Yes.
The invite. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this because we're going to be talking about symbology and etymology. And I think, a lot of times they're overlooked how powerful they truly are. So I can't wait to dive deep in this because I know you are well versed. So I really want to kind of start off with just some definitions. If you could just define symbolism and etymology for our listeners so that we can all be coming from the same place as far as definition.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good place to start too. The grammar stage of the three-step process of the trivium is how we want.
There you
go. I was think about that when I make a show or podcast. I try to think ahead of time, like, let's start in the beginning. What's the grammar? So etymology can also be called derivation. Sometimes people say the derivation of a word or the etymology is looking at where the word comes from. And it's not one of those things where it's always just cut and dry. There's different resources we can use to do some research about where words came from. Languages have changed over the years, and the usage of words has changed over the years. So there's kind of like this thing where keeping up to date with words and where they've been is an important aspect of communication so that we can clear up that we're on the same page with other people.
Yes.
And then symbolism, and the word symbolism or symbology, it's kind of an important differentiation that I think is important because, like, I did a multiple part series recently on my podcast that I called Symbology, which is the study of symbols, right? But symbolism is just, things that we call symbols. And there's a lot of different types of symbols, and that's something I would like to get into breaking down a little bit in the show. But I think it's important when we're talking about symbolism to recognize that everything symbols, words themselves are symbols.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Words represent the things that we're trying to communicate or talk about. And I think on that same note, it's important to recognize that both these things have a very objective reality to them. If words did not have any objective reality, then we wouldn't be able to share the same meaning between two people. If words, never actually meant anything.
Right. You can have a conversation.
There is some solidity to them, even though, as I said, they do change over time and the interpretation of them can be varied. I think that's why it's important to look at multiple sources when we are talking about looking at etymology or derivation of words. And when we're talking about symbols, to recognize that's a big, giant, everything symbol, right? With that said, I think the study of symbols is something that is crucial to this process of finding truth and freedom through natural law, which is a beautiful name that you have for this show. And
Thank you.
The thrust of what I try to get across in my podcast, it's very clear to me that you understand that message on a deep level because you are exemplifying exactly what I'm trying to encourage other people out there to do, which is to find a way to talk about truth and freedom, build towards truth and freedom through natural law understandings. So.
Yeah. I just feel like, everybody wants the world to change, but what are we going to change it to? If there's no understanding of natural law and how we actually build relationship with each other in a healthy way where we're not harming each other or have this authority over each other, we're going to end up in the same position. You can just going to keep starting over and end up in the same position. So I think it's so important, like the work that you do in your End Evil podcast, like you said, is crucial. It's crucial for spreading the word, and so that we can really build the world that we want to see. And I just was so glad when you agreed to talk about symbology or symbolism and etymology, because like you said, it's an important part of natural law. So I'd like you to really kind of talk about how symbols impact us, like mentally and spiritually, on a daily basis, because a lot of times I don't think people really realize how much impact they have on our day-to-day life.
Right. And I always comes to mind the word correspondence. And if folks have not checked out the Kybalion, Kybalion, it's not a incredibly large book. It's something you can sit down and read through fairly quickly.
Yep.
And it really shows us that there's these principles all through all reality, and mentalism being the first one that, like what people call God or the great all, the universal.
Right.
There is a intelligence to this whole experience. It's smart, it's
right.
Where our bodies heal themselves. It's not like we think, oh, I'm trying to heal my fingernail right now, I'm trying to grow my fingernail. You don't have to do it. Your cells are brilliant. They know how to do stuff. Look at a colony of ants. There are so many ways you can look at the amazing intelligence that's inherent in this reality, right? So just like that, correspondence is the same way. Everything within reality is like a mirror that is reflecting everything else. So when we kind of really latch onto these bigger concepts, these principles of reality, then we can actually interpret what's real and what's not real. And you would think that'd be just common sense, easy, but
right.
My experience in life has been the first, I would say, half of my life, 20 years, there was a lot of mystery at the end of the day. Frustration of, like, I feel like I'm pretty intelligent, like I have this amazing ability to compute with my brain, but there's a lot of things that aren't adding up and making sense in terms of my experience out here in the world. But then in the following 10 years after that, it all started to, as I did my own research and questioning process, now that I didn't have any authoritarian structure like directly on me the way it was in school or even with my parents, as sad as it was to lose both my parents, it did open up a world of self-responsibility for me, where I had to see the world through my own lens, and at that same time starting my own family in this world. And so I had to go through this process of questioning reality itself. And I personally went through a pretty intense waking up experience, and actually had to kind of go through that more than once. Each time it was a physical experience, mental experience, and a spiritual experience where, honestly, I want to say I was on the verge of feeling like I was going crazy a little bit, never quite there, but just definitely wow, starting to question even things I would have never thought I should question. And looking back now at some of those times, I go, wow, yeah, I was kind of out there for a week there. I was really tripping out. But when you start, you have to kind of almost get there to, I always think of that movie, when he put the glasses on, They Live, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Completely different reality with these glasses, and he's trying to get his buddy to put the glasses on. He doesn't want to put them on, and they have the most vicious fight, you've ever seen on TV, trying to get him to put the glasses on. And that is the reality of the situation, that it is so extreme. The two worlds we live in are the same exact thing. It's very paradoxical, but one is totally inverted. And that one is the world that is looking at the world from the point of view of this relativistic, Satanistic mindset, ego-based, what's best for me, and the material world and what we see in front of us is all that anything is.
That is, yep.
And it's all relative to how I feel about it. And whatever rules or laws we make just depends on how much force we can put on other people to follow our rules. And if that's the way it is, there's nothing we can do to change it because it's all sealed in fate anyway, and some God or some being owns us, so what can we do? You know, that type of thinking has been solidified in the mind of all people for so long that it's really hard to crack that and to see what I'm talking about. But one of the tools that I've been hoping might help put some leverage on that is understanding symbolism better, starting to see the actual congruence in reality, the actual correspondence between things, then it starts to like, wait a second, if that's true and that's true, then how can this be true? And when we ask ourselves these type of questions, the world opens to us for truth and freedom and natural law.
That is very true. That was a great answer because, like I said, I don't think people really kind of look at that whole scope of the impact of this and the importance of studying it. So I'm really excited to learn from you about some of the symbols. What are some of the symbols that you wanted to discuss and kind of point out to us?
I brought some visual aids to share.
Okay, great.
I have, I'd like to point people to a series I've done recently on the End Evil podcast. When you're done watching the show, next time you got some time, go check out the End Evil podcast. This was the Symbology episode, I think part 2. And I also did some roundtables on this where other content creators shared their thoughts on these topics. But when looking at symbology, there's some basic types of symbology that we can understand. Synonyms, imagery, metaphors, allegory, comparison, analogy, and simile. And, you know, I think taking things apart like this and looking at, like we were talking about with words and etymology, to find clarity, it really helps to break things down into some parts. So when I was going to talk about how do I study symbology, okay, what are the different types of symbology I might want to talk about? How well do I understand these terms and what they mean? So it was a good refresher for me to go through them and make a slide for each one. Yeah. And there's nothing like teaching that will more solidify something in your mind and help you learn something. So I really recommend people, you want to learn about words, teach people about words, and you will learn about words.
Yes.
I did one slide here about my favorite movie. My favorite all-time movie is Aliens.
I thought that's what that was back there. I was like, that looks like Aliens.
Yeah, and I thought, well, it's a good example of imagery, right? And imagery is one of the types of symbols that really affects us in today's modern world. Everybody's looking at these phones. Everybody's watching all the same movies. We've all seen the same cartoons. Everybody knows I've thought about this before, like, I could meet someone from another part of the world that speaks no English, and we could probably communicate using like Smurfs and TV shows because they probably recognize, you know, like those same things. You know, even someone from a very different culture from me probably understands the same TV shows that we watch.
Yeah, like probably everyone around the world knows who the Simpsons are.
Exactly. Right. I was talking to Derek about that. I know you interviewed Derek Bartolocelli.
Yes.
Awesome
Derek
guy
is phenomenal.
Out there in France, and he was saying what tripped me out when I visited France was that it was hard to find French music. They listened to a lot of American music.
Wow.
I wanted to hear the French music, and I kept going through all the stations, and it was all American music. I was like, what's going on? But then, you know, so then it makes you realize, like, a lot of these people that don't even speak English are hearing these American songs. And so, anyway, the point more so was the power of imagery, right? Like, as soon as I flashed that image of aliens, your mind conjures up a whole bunch of things. You've seen that movie, right? And what you see in this picture, you're seeing the innocent little girl with the monster behind her, which represents what? Oh, this fear, this monster's
Yes.
gonna, and so it's bringing up feelings of fear and care inside of you. So visually descriptive and figurative language really affects our mindset. And I don't know if you have, but I've noticed so many times, I still watch some of these shows. At the end of the day, we want to kill a little bit of time. We do watch some Netflix.
Oh yeah, I do here and there. I like certain shows and certain movies, and yeah, I feel like as long as you're in a certain mindset when you're watching it, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Well, right. That's the important part of being conscious, right? Because
Right.
even if you are conscious, we've watched quite a few violent shows, and then let's say it's a night where I'm having trouble sleeping. These scenes from the movies are still coming in my head, and I'm still feeling the emotions surrounding them, right?
Yeah.
Even if I'm conscious. So the power of imagery through the modern devices it's hard to describe, and I think it's really important to be conscious of the way it's affecting us. Even if we are conscious of the content, still there's this other aspect where we're performing a ritual with the people that are doing the killing on the show. We're ritually watching ritual murders and killing for entertainment. And that look at what does this one bring up, right? A metaphor, right? The undead, right? How many times has that been plastered on everybody's brain and eyeballs over the past few years in different ways?
They had I think 3 or 4 spinoff shows, and so it's like
it's a powerful metaphor too. Because what does it represent?
Yeah,
is like what Mark talked about, the undead. That's what they
think of us, the
ruling.
Yep,
exactly. So, and also the reality of what's happening when we're ignoring the truth and we don't, we're not willing to put on those glasses to see they live world, we're alive, but we're not really living because we're not engaged in the process of fighting for freedom, which is what we see in nature, that anything that's alive is natural to want to work towards its own freedom, and we're in a system that is enslaving us, and we're kind of keeping our eyes closed to that to an extent. All of us, even me, I'm talking about it openly, but how far am I going in the physical world? I'm only going so far. I'm only willing to make so many sacrifices.
Right, because it can be, can cost you your life, when you go to a certain level with trying to, exit this system, right at this point, because we're just collectively, we're just not, not there yet,
Right.
So between two worlds almost.
I mean, I want to shake more people awake and, tell them that. What I've realized is that we can't force people to realize things. And there is even a limit to the resources we have available. But I do enjoy breaking these things down. And, I won't go through all the details of all, each of these slides, but I just kind of wanted to give people an idea of if you really want to understand symbolism, it does take some time, and there's a lot to look at and think about. And you can take apart all these different types of comparing things and look at, this is a good one about the major topic we're talking about, the world we're in with all these religions of governments. There isn't much difference than the fervor you see at a religious event or the fervor you see at a political event. It's basically the same thing. People have some color, a flag, or something that represents their belief system, and they're going to just be part of this big groupthink process that's going on.
And anyone who's not a part of that group is evil. They're bad. They're going to hell. It's the parallels between the two are, they're very stark. I mean, you can see it. The parallels are there. You know what I mean? Because it's just another religion. Politics is just another religion that they've created to divide and conquer. It may be even a more powerful religion than the traditional religions that we think of, like Catholicism and Christianity and those type of things. It may be even more powerful than that at this point.
Well, I do. I mean,
popularity
I
is
think
part of
there's
it.
been a progression of different ways to control the minds of the masses over, millennia, right? Like there's
Yes,
been a lot of iterations of ways some groups or people have tried to control the rest of the people, and some ways have proved to work better than others. And the more subtle type of control seems to be working really well, in that people aren't seeing it for what it is. They're not seeing
right.
that they're being put in slavery. And when we say slavery, they're thinking of something else that was, a just slightly worse version of what we're experiencing now. And more often than not, we're talking to people that are able to live in such a place that are even able to hear such things, where there is a huge percentage of people in the world that actually are in literally bonds, or don't have access to these type of technologies because they're not as wealthy, or they
Right.
were born into a situation where they never had an opportunity, right?
Right.
So uh, anyway, I don't know if I'm getting off topic, but I'll just go through these last couple slides I got open here. Analogy, right?
Yep.
Is a day-to-day robber versus a tax collector who is a robber for the rest of your life and everybody else's life.
I'd much prefer the robber of the purse, because they probably
Right.
just rob me once
Yeah.
and just
Right.
get what's on me, not rob me forever.
That's the type of thing. When we look at symbols or analogies and we understand these words and we compare the things, it's like, I don't see how people can deny the problem here. It's like my presentation I'm working on now is called Spiritual Mathematics. And it's like,
Oh,
I'm
I
trying
like
to
that
explain,
name.
one person can do so much damage, right? Like one person can beat somebody up, one person can, rape, kill. But what can the power of 100 or 1,000 people in a government do? Like
Yeah.
kill a whole race of people,
Yep.
genocide, a whole
Mhm.
forest, a
Yep.
whole section of the planet destroyed.
Yes.
So what type of power, there's a huge difference in the magnitude of evil when we're
Yes.
talking about, me doing something slightly wrong, versus a government,
Right. Right.
right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that is a huge, important aspect of us being able to understand symbolism, symbology, and see the difference between how wrong something is. That's a
Yeah.
big difference. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I like analogies, because I think that is one thing that really helps people understand where you're coming from, when you can give them a clear analogy. Yep.
Right. Yeah. And then like we have imagery, right? So that's kind of where I'm bringing these up and trying to point out to folks, like, if you're an artist or you're creative and you do this type of work, where explain to people in pictures and images, use memes, use whatever it takes to show the inequities here. What
Yep.
are the comparisons we're making in our mind? What are we accepting every day when we don't notice the difference between right and wrong, right? Like how could even a politician doing anything they're doing be okay?
Right. Right.
Politics itself in its current form is a wrong
Yeah,
from
it's inherent. If you're once you read, you know what I mean, because it's so corrupt from the foundation of it. So it's like you know what I mean. It's
yeah, and that's the why of it, right? Like, why is it
right.
wrong? Well, this is one way I thought of comparison. Like actors, in a weird way, actors are always lying to you, right? But we don't call it a lie because they're being honest about the pretense they're setting or the deception. Like it's
Right.
not to deceive you. It's telling you, hey, I'm gonna let you be a little deceived, and you say, oh, I'm gonna allow myself to be, fooled a
Right.
little bit. I know that's not really you. I know you're acting like this character, right? So
Right.
actors admit that they're lying, but politicians are actors
They're
who
they're the best
won't
actors
admit
of
they're
all.
lying. They're just gonna lie and act like they're telling the truth. How
Yep.
wrong is that? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's inherent in their job that they're gonna lie to you, because the whole idea is to say that, oh, we can make some rule and we can make something right. But you can't. That's not something you can really do. You can't ever control huge populations of people. You can think you can, but in
Yeah.
the end, unless you're willing to kill every single one of them, you can't, because our
You can't.
minds are from the creator and they're untetherable, you know?
Yep, that is very true. Very true.
So yeah, that was pretty much the list that I had
Okay.
there of the symbolism. I mean, that's just scratching the surface of.
Yeah. But no, I really like those. And it really hits home, and it kind of does bring me into the next question or next topic, as far as how does, how does the occult and the powers that I like to call them the powers that shouldn't be, how do they use these symbols in order to, gain more control or gain more power or, manipulate us?
There's yeah, boy, we could do a whole presentation on
I
that.
know, just on that question.
I like that question though, because it's in so many ways, in so many subtle ways, it's through everything, right? Symbols affect us on a deeper level than pictures do. Like they say, a picture says 1,000 words, right? Why is that saying true? Because it can affect our emotions. And when we put different pictures together, it can affect our emotions in different ways. I would challenge people to look into colors. Colors affect people's moods. Spend a little time looking into advertising, for instance. The blue background, that's something that Mark brings up in his podcasts.
Yes, a lot. Mm-hmm.
Newscasts, you won't find one that doesn't have a blue background. Blue in our mind is as common and normal as the sky that we see every day. It's kind of built into our very mechanics, our chemistry, if you will, to recognize blue as sort of a safe, okay color. Like, if we were growing crops, you want to see the blue sky, the dark sky is a little bit more like ominous, like, oh, shoot, right. Unless you're waiting for rain. So even those colors would mean things. The dark clouds, black and gray, right? Like, oh, rain, bad weather, right? Like, those symbolize things. So using colors can affect our mood. I really challenge people to look into advertising. I learned so much looking into advertising. You learn about like Bernays, for instance. He's sort of known as the father.
That was Freud's nephew, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And actually, I've heard that his nephew or distant family member now owns Netflix. I saw that.
I believe it. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. And but yeah, he was pretty well known for selling cigarettes to America and for things like that, like bacon. Like people didn't eat bacon for breakfast, but he made it sizzle, right? He made it. He figured out how to appeal to people's emotions in a fairly deceptive manner, right? And,
he was tapping into the subconscious using Freud's work.
Yeah, and so I started looking into that. In some of my podcasts, in fact, one I interviewed a guy who did hypnotism. And he told me that what's really interesting about hypnotism, a few things. Like there's a third of the population basically that are kind of unhypnotizable. But the gist of what I get out of when I've looked into hypnotism is that in order for any type of hypnotism to work, we have to get ourselves into sort of a certain mindset. There's different mental vibrations. There's different I guess mindset's an okay word for now, but in our state of imaginative, where we're most susceptible to like a subliminal message, for instance. So if we're watching something that's like adventure story, our mind's sort of open, right? And we're just like watching, oh, this is just a fun, interesting story. But if there's an image or a message secretly being put in there that's being repeated, and you're not aware that that's happening,
right?
This method has proved to be very effective, and it will actually, up to 3/4 of the population, it will have some effect, and probably like a third of people, it will affect really well. There's a huge percent of people that are very affected by these type of methods. Yeah. So if you figure, if over half of the people are just directly being like kind of told what to do and how to do it, just through images and pictures alone and music, that would be pretty scary. But we also have schools, indoctrination centers. Yeah. And we also have it built into all the words that kids repeat from the time they're born. So Repetition is one of the most powerful aspects of hypnotism as well, and the imagination, capturing the imagination. And so if you kind of start to think about that, repeating things over and over and capturing the imagination, is that being done? Has that been done to us? And how many ways has that been done? Then it's pretty mind-blowing to really recognize the job that's been done on humanity, you know?
Yeah, I was watching this video about a study they did. I forgot where, but they showed a movie to people, and there were subliminal messages throughout the movie telling you to forget what you saw, like to not remember the movie. And so then they interviewed the people after that, when they came out of the movie, to ask them to tell them what the movie was about. And there was a significant number of people that could not tell them what the movie was about, just because they put that in there throughout the movie, to forget what you saw, to not be able to recall it. So it is super powerful. And I don't think a lot of people recognize how powerful it is. And a lot of symbols too, they're like archetypes. So it's like deep rooted in us when we come across the symbol, because it's like an archetype type of symbol. You know what I mean? So it evokes certain things. And so it's really easy for them to use that against us, because they already know, what's going to evoke.
Yeah, I talked about one thing, we've got this Funnel 4 conference coming up, February 22nd, 23rd. And the last week have been really crunch time for me on my presentation. So you're catching me.
Thank you for taking the time to come on here.
No, I'm done. I finished it. Mine's done.
Oh, good.
I'm really excited about it, but it's also fresh in my mind. And like every conversation I have with anyone, it's like, oh, that's like my presentation. I always want, it's hard not to go there. But what you're talking about, it got me to thinking about the Platonic solids. And Platonic solids are a really awesome and interesting aspect of geometry, or sacred geometry. And what I find particularly interesting is that the Platonic solids are shapes, 3D shapes that exist in nature. Like they've been discovered by mathematicians and philosophers alike. And it's not something we create, it's something we discovered. And so I think that helps me better understand that word that you used, archetypes, right? Yeah. When shapes exist inherently, our mind and body recognize those shapes. And one thing that occurred to me when I was studying this time around symbology is that even like the actual functions of our body, like what's going on inside of those tubes in our veins and our cells, there's actually chemical signatures, which are shapes. At the core,
that's true. I never even thought about it like that.
Going around inside of our body and communicating with other shapes. So at the deepest level, all life is, symbols connecting with other symbols, and then other symbols reacting to those symbols, right? And what else is words or any type of communication we do? So evil people want to manipulate good people. All they have to understand is that the imagination can be controlled with repetition. And if people are distracted, they will take orders. There's something about us humans where we're kind of programmable. If we're not programming ourselves in a world where there's a lot of programs running, we're going to kind of turn into this default. I always tell this to people, talk about hypnotism. Have you ever had a job where you went to the same place for a long period of time, like a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even longer? And then all of a sudden, one day you're going somewhere else and you find yourself driving on that same road you've driven on for 3 years. And you're going, where am I going?
Right.
It was just in auto mode, right? And you're thinking about something else. That is exactly what I'm talking about. And we're getting caught in auto mode all the time because the reality we're in is controlled by people that want us to be in auto mode.
Yeah, that is very true. Very true. So that kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is why understanding symbology and etymology is so important and connected to discernment and to truth. Because like you said, if you are just on autopilot and you're not recognizing it, where's your discernment? How do you even recognize truth? Because you're just kind of programmed by all these symbols all day. And if you don't and then they're using the words, which are also symbols, and we don't understand the etymology behind the word, but at some level we do. So it's, you know what I mean, putting us deeper and deeper into the programming.
Yes, I mean, becoming conscious and aware is a very difficult process in the world we're in. That's kind of why I described a little bit. So, in a way, that's me trying to talk to the listener through my personal experience of emotion, like waking up from this realization of the situation we're in this world was painful. It was like,
quite.
it was like crawling out of a rock in a hard place and getting scraped the whole way, having to, like the guy who had to cut his own hand off, it felt like that, I had to sever a lot of my past preconceptions. But here I got something I brought that, let me see if I can bring this. We did an episode with the One Great Work Warriors called Finding Clarity, Words and Etymology. And I made this slide, and this is actually from the Bible.
Oh, okay.
John
Some great
1.
stuff in there.
There is, especially the red words. But this is John 1, and it says, "The Word became flesh. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made." And so that little saying right there, the reason I really like that is because, to me, it symbolizes something that's very true about our reality. If you don't say something, if you don't put something into this world, it doesn't get said and it doesn't get done. In other words, if I was walking down a dangerous path and I was about to step off the edge of a cliff, and you knew that cliff was there, you knew me, and we were within speaking distance, and you didn't say, "Hey, watch out for that cliff," and I stepped off the edge, there's part of you that's responsible for not taking that action because you saw it happening. But when you push your word into the world and you said, "Hey, watch out for that cliff," and I went, "Whoa, thanks for telling me that," you then made that reality real, right? Another way I like to describe it is, let's say, Cynthia, you made an appointment to hang out with me today for doing this podcast. "Oh, Chris, let's do it Wednesday, February 5th at 4 p.m. And then Wednesday, February 4th at 4 p.m. comes, and I'm not here. So was my word real, or was my word not real, right? I didn't make it in the flesh. There's not a correspondence between my word and where I am. So I become false. The more I become false in my life, the less people are going to trust me, right? So our words, what we put out into the world, is what makes reality. The reality that we experience is manifested from our thoughts and our ideas and translated into our choices. And that's why it's so important and crucial to understand the value of our words and being clear with them and what we put out into the world, because that's the future of humanity. That's the legacy we're leaving for other people,
No, that was on point. That is true. Our word is our bond. We're nothing without that. If it means nothing, what are we doing here?
Right. My dad was from like the Midwest, and he grew up like the old kind of farmer types, and that your word was your bond. I remember he used to say that.
I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I live in Georgia now, but yeah. Word is bond.
I have found that when you get further out of cities, and I think there's a pretty direct correlation. When people are living closer to the land and they're a little more dependent on one another and not so dependent on a system, they tend to understand these principles on a more basic common sense level. And what was amazing to me about spending time in Western Pennsylvania when I was like 18, 19, compared to where I grew up, in East San Jose, the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
was a lot of people understood, not only did they sort of understand boundaries, but they also understood that it was everybody's job in a community to support that community. And if there was something weird going on or someone that needed help, it was good to just help that person. And there was actually people that had houses out there to keep candles in their windows at all times as a way to say, anyone in the public, if you need somewhere to stay, come on here. This is a place to stay.
Oh, wow.
You know,
That's
so
beautiful.
their old-fashioned values are out of style, but we need to bring them back into style, because how are we going to support one another unless we understand the importance of what we put into the world with our time and energy? You know,
I'm actually doing because we were like so in sync. This was on my mind so much. So I'm actually have a podcast scheduled with a guest next month talking about community. How do we build community? What went wrong, and how do we rebuild it the proper way? So yeah, that is perfectly on point with where my mindset is as well, as far as community and the importance of it. We have to find a way to get back to real community and really true caring about one another, caring about the world, caring about the environment, because the community extends beyond just people. Sometimes we only focus on us. The community is everything: the animals, the trees, the plants, you know what I mean, the food we're growing. That's all part of the community, because it's all interdependent on each other. We can't live here without the insects. We can't live here without food growing. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, that's a powerful point. I really am glad that you brought up community, because I think that's so important. And a lot of the things that they do with, with the symbolism and the mind control has just destroyed our whole concept of community.
Yeah, it's broken down our trust.
Yes. Yeah, no one trusts anyone else.
Trust is integral to having any type of relationship, right? And how do we build trust, right? Like, we have to have good communication. Communication and trust are, two parts of the same thing. One builds the other. This is something I've learned. So I think, when we're talking about our words, it's important to ask these questions to yourself. Like, what good are your words doing?
Yes.
Right? If they're not doing any good, what are you doing it for, right? What good do your words stand for? The words you put out of the world, what do they stand for? Do your words serve truth, right?
Yes.
Or do they just serve yourself?
Yeah.
And then what spell are you under? What do your words spell, right? Are you just conjuring the same spell that's being put upon all of us, or are you creating words that serve truth, right? So that's one way to put it. And the importance of words, and kind of tie words in with our purpose and our meaning. And being clear is that bridge that helps us communicate with people. And when we communicate clearly and people know where we're coming from, and they know that we can understand what they want to say and that we care about what they say, then that builds that trust that we need. It's crucial to do any type of community or group work, as you're describing. That's so necessary. We can't do this alone.
No, we are not even built that way. So community is essential. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that you brought that up. Because the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about was, how does symbolism and etymology relate to natural law? And I think that's one of the main ways it relates, is if we are aware of what they are doing, and then how to properly incorporate symbols and get an understanding of their meanings and of the etymology of different words. I think that's going to make a huge impact on us being able to not just grasp the concept of natural law, but to implement it into actual action in our daily lives, to implement it and bring it into true care.
Yeah. And making something real is in so many ways where we focus, right? Because I think where people struggle with, I've thought a lot about this, objectivity versus subjectivity. And I've been in many disagreements with folks about this. And that disagreement is the crux of my spiritual mathematics presentation that I'm presenting for Funnel 4. And, the heart of that is recognizing like you're saying, that natural law is an inherent binding principle. The words we're putting together, natural law, are a way for us to communicate that concept, right? And some people are going to say, oh, I don't recognize that concept. I don't believe that that concept exists. And what we're saying is that it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, we recognize it, and that's what we're talking about, So it has to be discovered by the individual and understood by the individual, right? There is always going to be this aspect to the fact that we are subjective beings. We are experiencing this life through our own lens. Right. So there is some subjectivity to everything that we think about or say or do. I understand what people are getting at with that, and that conditions aren't always going to be the same in different places, which is exactly the reason why we can't have one size fits all rules or one size fits all rulership, because every situation and condition is always going to be infinitely different. And nature, just like the Mandelbrot set, has infinite complexity, and it goes from chaos to order, depending on your context, whether you're zooming in or out, So, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did, and yeah, a lot of people do struggle, I think, with just the concept alone of natural law, let alone living by natural law, just the concept of it. And again, I think,
like, what does that mean, right?
Yeah, if they start looking at the etymology of both words separately and then putting them together, I think that could help them get a better, clearer understanding of what it really means and how powerful of that it is, how powerful the concept of natural law is, and how inherent it is to existence itself.
Sometimes I say everything we do matters, as a way to kind of bridge the gap when I'm talking to someone and I feel like they're stumped by the concept of natural law. Everything we do matters, so that it's not like, in certain religions and belief structures through time, people have thought like fate, like everything's already decided and we're just like actors acting it out, right? And I would say, well, if you're thinking that way and it turns out you're wrong, then you're doing all these things in life that turned out they really mattered and they really affected a lot of other life besides just you. And that somewhere in this existence, there's going to be an accountability to that. And you were living as if that were not true. That's going to be a hard pill to swallow when you come to that realization that, oh, shoot, every little thing I did, I'm accountable for. Yeah. Right. And so
that effect is always an effect.
That's basically where I'm saying that reality is morality. It's morality in we're experiencing it in the physical form. It exists in a form that doesn't need to be physical.
It does, absolutely.
But this is like an amazing experience we're getting to like kind of go through to see, well, how does morality work out on the physical plane? Yes. And so we get to do things, and then we get to see what happens because we did those things. Yeah. And it's not just one person's video game. It's not like it's just Chris' world and Cynthia's just a made-up bot in my world.
Everybody likes to throw around NPC pretty freely these days. So
it's just like it's an excuse, I think. Yeah. I think it's sort of a justification to say, like, if you make up those type of theories, it makes you feel better about not being accountable for everything you do in life. But I'm just saying, what if that's not true? What if you are accountable for everything in life? Then natural law would represent that concept, that there is a law that's binding and built in and inherent, and it applies to all human consciousness, that the things we do will affect the outcome that we all experience.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I do want to open it up if anyone has any questions or comments, because this has been, a very, very deep conversation. So I'm sure I've sparked something in someone's brain out there.
This has been amazing. How y'all doing?
Thank you. Good.
No, absolutely. Peace, Chris. Man, because you hit on three different things that I want to bring up, but I'm gonna try to bring up one that encompasses all three. Um, I was talking via text message. I have a text thread with like 6 or 7 family members, yeah, and there there are 2 or 3 that are very locked in to NPC belief systems, if you will,
Okay.
right? And obviously, no super disrespect to my family members just to be disrespectful, but just like you could just, anybody in the freedom community, if you were to peer into this text thread, you would see it automatically what that means. Like they just locked into the, whatever the mainstream narrative is, and then whatever the counter narrative that the mainstream gives you is the only enemy, and just like that kind of thing. You
Yeah.
feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And in this, conversation I was having with somebody, I was taken aback by how far the mind control and hypnotism goes when
Yeah.
I pointed out that because sometimes we'll share like Instagram reels and news articles in this text thread and, kind of argue back and forth about them. But I said to the whole group, I said, I can see that none of the recent shares that I've put in here are even being entertained or opened. I can just, I can tell by the silence and by some of the replies. But that's cool, no problem. And one of my family members, he bold-faced lies and says, I watched this yesterday and I totally disagree. And puts the link, one of the links that I put in there. And so I asked him, well, what do you totally disagree with? Because it just so happens that the one that he shared and lied about watching had no opinion. It was simply a report of, this was here and these emails were this and this is what was in those emails. And that's it.
Yeah.
Right? It was
How can you
regarding,
disagree? Like,
yeah, there's no, unless you're saying that you think it's a fabrication, like, some sort of lies are happening. But you didn't say that. You said, I totally disagree, as
yeah.
if this was an opinion. It was the general big umbrella topic that they were talking about was adverse reactions to COVID jabs or whatever. But,
Okay.
but just to step back and be like, why, how deep do you have to be to treat a family member like a rando on Facebook, where you're saying that you totally disagree with something you didn't even open and watch or listen to?
Right. Yeah.
And it just, when Chris, when you brought up hypnotism and looking into the psychology of colors and how, blue has an effect, green has an effect, blue and red together have a certain effect, right? White text with a black outline has an effect, and all of these things make up, like either a safe environment or a very excited environment to absorb the information that really, that they want to hear and that they want to confirm their bias because they really wish the world really worked how the mainstream news says it does for some odd reason.
Yeah.
That puts some perspective in my head, and I thank you for offering that. I guess that's not a question, but you brought some perspective to my head that this is hypnotism. This is not even just
Yeah.
like stubbornness. This is literal, like I
Under a
snap my
spell.
fingers
It's
and you're a
spell.
monkey. Yeah,
Yeah.
like so that's what I wanted to offer. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you so much on that. It's a lot of people under a spell. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm glad something I said opened up something for you there. And we barely scratched the surface, the shapes thing. I got so much more I'd like to say about that, but I kind of more want to respond to Soul, what he was saying. For me, when I'm describing these experiences I had of kind of coming to awakening, each time the essence of the realization that was so difficult was just how far people are not willing to ask questions or be curious. And one of them, the biggest one that happened to me at first, was when I was looking into geoengineering and chemtrails and weather manipulation. And it wasn't just the topic that really got me the worst, because I spent a lot of time struggling with it. I didn't accept easily any answers until I researched them myself. But what really got to me was that everyone I would talk to in the public would brush me off as if it wasn't an important topic. And I'm saying, well, wherever you stand on it, if we're being sprayed like bugs, that's an important topic.
It's an important
and if
topic.
I have any type of evidence on that, and I'm coming to you as a friend, someone that I respect, and I went to many people I respected with this, and the way they treated me, I didn't feel like was very respectful of the fact that I'm coming to you with something I'm honestly researching that's fucking up my life, to put it nicely. I'm really struggling with this. It's changing all aspects of my life. I'm asking you to look at it with an honest eye and really get back to me. And they could not do it. People change the subject. They go around it. They go under it. They go over it. They insult you with putting you down to get out of the conversation. They're so afraid of reality. They're so afraid to find out what the truth is.
That they're so scared that what you're saying is true, because part of them knows it's true.
It's like
part of them knows it's true. Yeah.
You're peeling the layers off the onion. You keep peeling them off, and then you realize the onion's rotten. The deeper you go, people just don't have that care to want to know why.
Geoengineering is so crucial. I keep like flyers in my guest room in my house upstairs, just up there, hoping that when people stay with me, they'll just get curious and read it. Like I watch Dane Whittington every Sunday, or shortly after, or no, he does it on Saturday or shortly after. But his program, he does it every single week, just about geoengineering. Geoengineering, it's either .org or .com. Geoengineering Watch. .org. And it's a huge problem. It's a huge issue. It's probably the biggest environmental issue we have by far. The fact that every single thing, not just us, every single thing on this earth is being poisoned.
And how far back in time it goes too.
Yeah. Yes. They've been doing this for a very long time. So
too long of a time.
Yes, far too long.
Do you mind if I cut in real quick?
Hey, yeah, come on in, Derek.
Yeah, Cynthia, much love, yo, Chris. Great to see y'all. Soul Expression. I see you, brother Theo, Lukes, and Nemo. I think I see y'all guys listening in. But it's so symbolic, right? Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. Look it up if you haven't. This guy is monumental in the whole chemtrail, geoengineering stuff. You know, this is weather warfare 101 type of shit. And that's another book and YouTube channel on the side. But going back to how symbolic it is, because Chris kind of lives near Dane Wigington, and he's been trying to get in touch with Dane for quite some time. But, you know, he's kind of one of those people, you don't see him being interviewed by much to anyone. But all that aside, I really appreciate the conversation. It's been great. I've been here from the get-go. And I appreciate the shout out. And y'all mentioned The Simpsons, and I think Chris, I get like this sometimes too. You go on these tangents and stuff, and I don't know if you had in your mind, you talk about Simpsons, and you know, me being out in France, like me watching The Simpsons in French helped me learn the language so much. And like, and like for me, it goes beyond just predictive programming, because Matt Groening, Freemasonry, whatever the fuck, and all this stuff. So if they are really in the know, wouldn't you think that they are projectively programming instead of predicting things? Like prognostics and predictions, you would think like they don't necessarily know what's going on, but you know, these people are in the know, so it's beyond that in a sense. And it's like, it's so symbolic, right? But anyways, my main question and the reason why I came on is because Chris, please enlighten the audience. And I forget if you've mentioned this in your brilliant, live stream series in regards to symbology, symbolism, and the whole nine. And I love the fact you're trying to cover so many different angles and stuff. It's really cool. I really encourage people to check that out.
Yes.
And My question to you, brother man. What is your intentions and feelings behind the symbolism of End Evil podcast with your, kind of law correspondence as above, so below? Don't you know, Tree, mon ami, my friend.
Thanks, Derek. Well, the book, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. Anyone's looking at the book, get this book. I have some copies. Hit me up.
Excellent book. Excellent read.
Yeah, that was the inspiration for the podcast. It's really optimistic considering when we see how screwed up the world is to still think that we can get out of this. But I don't think it. I know it. Nature, the universe is always striving towards freedom, and it won't be enslaved. It won't tolerate slavery endlessly. And so it's just a matter of time till things turn around. But in the meantime, it could be pretty painful, right? Yeah. And so my idea is that what we talked about, community, I've had nothing but one of the things that comes naturally to me in life is get along with people. And so the tree to me represents our roots, our connection to each other, what I call interconnectedness. And I think one of the vitalist aspects of reality, when you get down to the smallest cell, and they look in there in the quantum level, and it's 99.9999% empty space. We're all bound together by this limitless, everything and nothing all in one amazing mystery of experience that reacts to whatever we do or don't do. But we're all part of it, and it's part of us. And that is what the tree represents. It represents the fact that everything we do affects everybody else. What everybody else is doing affects us. So we're in this business together, and that's the core aspect of natural law. So.
Yep. We are one. So that's
Derek.
beautiful. Yes, thank you.
Like
Derek,
those one grade report logo with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if folks, check out the One Great Work Warriors. Those slides I was sharing were from episodes I've done with the Warriors, a powerful little team. We meet every week, and we put out regular shows, and you can find those on endevil.life or Derek's Awaken Your Mind or Odyssey or Brandon Spencer's 24-hour Twitch, always running. So, yeah.
I don't have Twitch yet. I guess I got to get with the times.
Kind of a good one to stream too, if you start doing the live streaming on multiple channels.
Okay. Yeah. I need to try to expand my reach for sure. So, but this has been great. Did anyone else have any questions or comments before we finish up? No.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Europa, Nestable.
Hey guys, so great. I came in late, but I just had this just something Chris said, just fired off this memory of a kind of realization I had, which I'd really like to share because I think it might be appreciated. Which is just about what it's in a way, what's the most real thing about consciousness? We're used to thinking that matter is real, and this is the real reality,
right?
But when actually it's the other way around. It's like spirit is the most real and matter is the most ephemeral, right?
Yeah, it's an illusion.
Matter
is what did they say? But a very persistent one.
yeah, exactly. But beyond this, there's always the actual reality. I don't know. It's something something Chris said just kind of fired that off of me. So I just thought I'd throw that into the mix. But it's great to have you guys on, not so late at night over here, because normally your streams are always
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you could join us, and I'm glad that we had some great comments and questions as well. And thank you so much. Please, Chris, tell everyone again where they can find you.
Sure. Yeah, and that was Nemo. Check out Europa Natural Law. They're doing some great work over there too. And appreciated being part of one of their recent chats. But I really want to send people right now more than anything to freedomundernaturallaw.com. That's where I'm putting most of the energy for the next few weeks here. And you can also check out my work on endevil.life. But yeah, check out freedomundernaturallaw.com. There's a replays tab with the last 3. You can find all the links to the last 3 in each speaker's presentation. There's a donate link. We could use some help. It's all just being funded by our own hard work and time and energy.
Can you give me that one more time?
freedomundernaturallaw.com.
Okay. Because I'll put that link with your, when I post this video, I'll put that link underneath.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have to support one another in this because it takes all of us. It takes every willing person that has this knowledge and this information to speak. Just how you were talking about how powerful words are. They are extremely powerful. Our actions are extremely powerful. We are the creators of our reality. So if we want to create something different, we got to get more people on board. We have to have a collective. We have to have a community like we talked about. So I thank you so much for all the work you do. I thank you so much for coming on my podcast. And as always, I invite you to check out the website, firmlifedaily.com. There's tons of great videos. There's a resource page with some of everything on it, resources to books, videos, documentaries, services, products. So check it out. There's affirmations on there, and subscribe to the newsletter. Help spread the word. We all have to help spread the word with each other's work. That's how we get this done, one person at a time, opening up one mind at a time. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Chris?
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Cynthia. Thanks, Cynthia. Yeah, spread your words are seeds, and the seeds grow the trees.
Yes, plant those seeds.
So let's work on it. Much love, all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, everyone have a wonderful night, and thank you so much for joining me. And like I said, I'll post all of his links with the podcast once I get it up on the website and on YouTube. Other than that, love, grace, and gratitude. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.